Greetings of a Happy New Year from Loyola School of Theology here in Metro Manila, Philippines. I am Father Enrico Eusebio of the Society of Jesus, President of LST. With me is Father Rohel Anesito Abais of the Society of Jesus, Vice President for Academic Affairs. With this video, we are launching our LST International Study Days on Fratelli Tutti, Pope Francis's encyclical on fraternity and social friendship. This is LST's way of supporting the reception of the thoughts of Pope Francis within and outside the Church among the various sectors of our society.
Fratelli Tutti, or literally Brothers All, or All of Humanity in Italian, is an 8-chapter document, the third encyclical of Pope Francis. Here, he reflects on many of today's socio-economic ills and then proposes an ideal world of brotherhood and sisterhood where countries are able to be part of a larger human family. It was signed on October 3, 2020 by Pope Francis on the tomb of Saint Francis in Assisi and was published the following day, October 4, on his feast day. As Pope Francis was in the process of writing the encyclical, the COVID-19 pandemic unexpectedly struck. In his introduction, he wrote that the pandemic exposed our false securities, the inability of various countries to work together to address the crisis became quite evident. For all our hyperconnectivity, Pope Francis wrote, we witnessed a fragmentation that made it more difficult to resolve problems that affect us all. And anyone who thinks that the only lesson to be learned was the need to improve what we were already doing or to refine existing systems and regulations is denying reality.
Fratelli Tutti. These words from the saint from Assisi were used by the Pope as the title of his encyclical. These words of Saint Francis inspired his brothers and sisters during his time to a kind of love that transcends the barriers of geography and distance, an openness that allows us to acknowledge, appreciate, and to love each person, regardless of physical proximity, regardless of his or her own origins. This saint of fraternal love, simplicity, and joy, who inspired Pope Francis to write the encyclical Laudato Si, prompts him once more to devote this new encyclical to fraternity and social friendship.
Pope Francis recounts an event in the life of the Poverello of Assisi that shows his openness of heart, which knew no bounds and transcended differences of origin, nationality, color, or religion. It was his visit to Sultan Malik el-Kamil in Egypt, which entailed considerable hardship with the great distances to be traveled and their differences of language, culture, and religion. Unconcerned for the hardships and dangers involved, Saint Francis went to meet the Sultan with the same attitude that he instilled in his brother Franciscans. If they found themselves among the Saracens and other non-believers, without renouncing their own identity, they were not to engage in arguments or disputes, but to be subject to every human creature for God's sake. Pope Francis says that some 800 years ago, Saint Francis urged that all forms of hostility or conflict be avoided and that a humble brotherly and sisterly acceptance be shown to those who did not share his faith.
In fact, according to Pope Francis, issues of human brotherhood and sisterhood and social friendship have always been his concern. Having spoken about the topic repeatedly and in different settings, in this encyclical, he has sought to bring together many of those statements and to situate them in a broader context of reflection. In writing this encyclical, he felt particularly encouraged by the Grand Imam Ahmad Al-Tayyib, whom he had met in Abu Dhabi, where both leaders declared that God has created all human beings equal in rights, duties, and dignity, and he has called them to live together as brothers and sisters. Pope Francis is offering his thoughts to us as a modest contribution to continued reflection, in the hope that in the face of present-day attempts to eliminate or to ignore others, we may prove capable of responding with a new vision of sisterhood, brotherhood, and social friendship that will not remain in the level of words.
A Filipino liturgical song composed by the former dean and professor of Loyola School of Theology, the late Father Eduardo Hontiveros of the Society of Jesus, captures beautifully in melody and in the words from St. Paul what Pope Francis urges us on to dream as a single human family. Pananagutan, responsibility. Walang sinuman ang nabubuhay para sa sarili lamang. Walang sinuman ang namamatay para sa sarili lamang. Tayong lahat ay may pananagutan sa isa't isa. Tayong lahat ay tinipon ng Diyos na kapiling niya. Sa ating pagmamahalan at paglilingkod sa kanino man, tayo ay magdadala ng balita ng kaligtasan. Sabay-sabay ngang mag-aawit ang mga bansa. Tayo'y tinuring ng Panginoon bilang mga anak. No one lives for oneself. No one dies for oneself. We are all responsible for one another. We have all been gathered as one by God to be with Him. All the nations will sing together as one, for we are all God's children.
In the weeks of our LST International Study Days, some of our LST alumni dispersed around the world will guide us through the different chapters of Fratelli Tutti here in LST's YouTube live stream account every Wednesday at 10:30 in the morning, beginning today, Wednesday, January 6, 2021. Instead of just presenting to us chapters of the encyclical, they will share with us their own personal reflections in the context of their life and ministry. And so, from Vietnam, we'll have Father Francis Xavier Nguyen Tin of the Society of Jesus and Father Pong Din Tuai of the Chameleon Fathers. From Malaysia, Father Jojo Fung of the Society of Jesus. From Argentina, Father Walter Hernan Diaz of the Scalabrini Fathers. From Italy, Reverend Cesare Sposetti of the Society of Jesus. From India, Sister Antonetta Pereira of the Franciscan Missionaries of Mary. From Myanmar, Father Wilbert Mire of the Society of Jesus. From Kenya and South Sudan, Father Martin Waweru Kamau of the Society of Jesus. From Indonesia, Father Greg Sotomo of the Society of Jesus. From Cambodia, Father Jose Hildy Banaynal of the Society of Jesus. And from the Philippines, Father Manuel Montes Claros of the Society of Jesus, Father Rowan Rebustilio of the Diocese of Sorsogon, and Dr. Maria Teresa Gingona, Africa.
So let us begin our LST International Study Days by reading Chapter 1 of the encyclical, entitled Dark Clouds Over a Closed World.
Hello and warm greetings to every member of LST community. I am Nguyen Tinh, speaking with you from Vietnam. I am a Jesuit, former student of LST. Now I am a theology teacher at SJJS, at the Saigon Major Seminary, at the Vietnam Catholic Institute, and some other places. My teaching subjects include dogmatic and systematic theology courses. I am also in charge of the Jesuit formation in the Vietnam province. Now let's get into the content of the introductory numbers and chapter 1 of the Fratelli Tutti. First of all, I would like to make clear what this encyclical is about. It is about fraternal love. That is, according to the Pope, it is a love that transcends all barriers, be it geography, culture, ethnicity, or religion. As we enter chapter 1, I think it's best to view it as a prophetic voice, describing the world today in its darkest aspects. As you may wonder, is the Pope fair in stating all the negative points about the world today? Can he not see many other positive points about it? If you see this chapter as a prophetic voice, then you may find that the Pope doesn't need to be fair. He doesn't need to give a holistic analysis of the context of the world. He is just raising issues that may challenge us and convoke us to metanoia, that is, to a deeper reflection and to renewal. This is what the prophets of the old time used to do. They focus on the dark side of the reality to challenge people, even though this may not be what the people wanted to hear about. Secondly, to better remember the content of this first chapter, I think it is best to put its content into pairs of contradictions or ironies. I will present 7 of them. It seems to me that the Pope is describing the dark side of the world as something that puts us in paradoxical ironies or in contradiction to ourselves. Let's see 7 of these contradictions. First, the Pope says that globalization is making us neighbors but not brothers. This is an irony. We are neighbors but not true neighbors because we are not brothers and sisters to one another. It is like our world is getting more crowded. We come to know more people through our high technology. But ironically, we get more lonely than ever. Furthermore, in this seemingly smaller world, we get less and less sense of a common home or a common family. Everyone is on her own. Second, irony. The colonizers of today's world are luring young people to new ideas, new cultures, by tempting them to forget their own cultural heritages. They want them to have a future, but without a past. This will help the colonizer of modern time to more easily manipulate the youth and reign on them. The third irony is that today we use a lot more of slick marketing techniques, but no constructive dialogue. We talk a lot, but saying nothing helpful. Or even worse, our speech is turned to a weapon to downgrade or reject the others. The Pope may be thinking of the debates between Trump and Biden when he wrote that. Debate degenerates into a permanent state of disagreement and confrontation. The fourth irony is that we may be getting economic growth but not integral human development or progress. People may get more money, but that doesn't mean that they get richer. They may find themselves living a life less human than when they got less money. We get more food, but are we healthier? Or on the opposite, we get more disease because of the food of bad quality. Abundance drives us to a culture of discard. We discard everything, even people, when they are of no use to us. The fifth irony is that human rights in our days are not truly improved, but even trampled upon more than ever, in many forms. Despite various forums on different levels in which we discuss a lot about human rights, there appear today many new forms of slavery. The Pope talks about women who are forced to abort, people who are kidnapped for the sake of selling their organs, human trafficking, etc. The sixth irony is that the more we are advanced in technologies, the more we get back to our primeval fear. We build more walls than ever and tend to see others as enemies. The seventh and the last irony, we are bombarded with a lot of information but get no wisdom. We may know a lot but don't know how to listen to one another, to enter to one another's life, and we fail to live together as human. In the Pope's own words, his silence and careful listening disappear, replaced by a frenzy of texting. This basic structure of sage human communication is at risk. Here's another word. We fail to keep our attention focused, to penetrate into the heart of matters, and to recognize what is essential to give meaning to our lives. The Pope also talks about COVID-19, migration, and the Internet, which I consider as the reality checks to prove the points he made above about our real world. Now we move on to the second part of this presentation. I invite you to reflect in your own context about what the Pope said in this chapter. Do the 7 contradictions apply to your context or not? For myself, I will present to you how do we experience all of this in the context of Vietnam today. But before that, let's have a quick review of the ironies of the world today that the Pope points out in this chapter 1. As you, especially those coming from Vietnam, may already know, all 7 ironies apply more or less to the context of Vietnam nowadays. But I would like to highlight 3 of them, as I find them resonated most sharply in our experience here in Vietnam. First of all, it is the problem of losing cultural roots and heritages. Young Vietnamese are said to be seriously lacking in knowledge about our own history. Traditional forms of culture, its music, costumes, are struggling to survive in a society that is market economically driven. That is not to mention the fact of moral decay. Such traditional values as filiality, family bond, marital loyalty, etc. are regrettably disappearing. Secondly, the problem of growth, but without progress. As you may already know, our economy has a stable growth rate of about 5 to 7% per year for the past 30 years. But when asked if Vietnam society is really making progress, we may hardly find an affirmative answer. Some people get rich in the speed of light by selling land, but then having no stable job, and that amount of money doesn't assure them of a secure future. That is not to mention the prices we have to pay for the economy growth. One of them is the destruction of natural forests. This year we have got new forms of natural disasters related to this: landslide, flood, etc. Thirdly, the problem of human rights. Here I am not talking about suppression of human rights, which may happen here and there in some cases, But the more ongoing issue is the lack of support or advocacy for human rights, especially for those vulnerable. I am thinking of farmers who are exploited by price squeezers. I am also thinking of migrant workers whose life level is maintained just about the survival line. Well, I guess we could end here our discussion on this chapter 1 of the encyclical Fratelli Tutti. Thank you for your listening and reflection, and see you on some other occasion. Thank you.